Hey guys, how's it going? This is Khan, Mr. So Real, and welcome to this week's State of the Game kind of recap. Although this is not necessarily a recap, it's a little bit more in-depth. I'm going over everything that they talked about, and this time I'm going to make it a little bit easier to follow. When I watched the live stream, I thought that some of the key points were spoken about in one section, and then they talked about something else, and then they went back to the first section, and then they started talking about something else, and it was kind of confusing putting everything together in one real cohesive way to understand it. So to make it easier for you guys, I decided to go in and chop it up and make sure that relevant topics were put together, and they have nice little questions to make it easier to understand for everyone, so that you know what they are going to talk about and what answers you will get. Now, if you enjoyed this video and if this helps you out to understand what the hell was going on with the state of the game, please remember to give the video a like and leave a comment and let me know what you guys think about these new gear sets that are coming. So without wasting any more of your time, why don't we get into this, because it's going to be a really rather lengthy video, and there will be a part 2 which we will talk about the overall 1.7 experience and what things are going to change. This video is only going to be about the new gear sets that are coming. So keep that in mind, and why don't we get into this.
Hello everyone, and welcome to State of the Game for the 22nd of June. And we've got some new information coming about what's happening in 1.7, some things you haven't heard before. There's new classified gear coming in 1.7. What does that mean? Terry and Keith from Redstorm, you guys are basically veterans of this stream now. Could you guys introduce yourselves for the folks at home?
Sure, my name's Terry Spear. I'm the creative director here at Redstorm Entertainment.
And I'm Keith Evans. I'm the lead designer here at Redstorm on the division.
I promised that we'd talk about classified gear. When we say classified gear, what are we talking about?
Classified gear are better versions of the gear sets that you know and love. I think that's the highest level we could go to.
Okay.
You want to jump into details, Keith?
Well, they're the next thing for you to strive for, especially if you have a set you already really love and identify with. We want you to be able to go all in on that, right? So there's a bunch of things that these are bringing to the table, but probably the biggest is that they're going to have special 5- and 6-piece bonuses,
yes.
Which is pretty awesome.
I think we also need to put the proviso on the 5- and 6-piece bonuses are extensions of existing gear sets. Just
yes.
I think the way we're talking about it now, people think these are entirely new gear sets, which you could view them as, because there are 5- and 6-piece things which make them entirely different, correct?
They will change the way you play the game. Absolutely.
But we wanted to retain the identity of the set. So if there was something you really liked about Lone Star, the 6-piece will improve that.
It adds to the thematic. One of our goals was to kind of look at each set and say, like, what fantasy does this set fulfill for the player? What do we want this set to be about? And the 6-piece is doubling down on that fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do I get a classified gear piece?
Well, when the global event kicks off, there will be 3 new classified sets that players can earn through the global events and through the reward system of the global events. Once the global event has concluded after the week, the classified gear sets that were included there will become a part of the common loot pool. So you'll be getting them in all the activities you do around the world.
So these will happen during the global events, but not all of them, correct?
Nope.
All
just
right.
3.
Just
3
3.
Three for each global event.
All right.
The plan is to do a classified version of every gear set in the game.
All right.
Yep. And so these will be divvied out in the global events to begin with, and then, like I said, after the global event, those 3 will be released into the wild for farming.
So, I mean, one of the reasons, honestly, for not doing a gear score increase is because these slot in with your existing gear that you've already got, right? Mm-hmm. So there's some special things about the way these drop and the functionality they have outside of the 5 and 6. One of the major bonuses is that their base primary stat range is always going to start at the max of a standard 256 gear set piece. So just getting one of these to drop is like an exciting thing, and when you slot it in, you're improving your build just that little bit. Even if you were already min-maxed, it's that much better. Okay. And because we want these to be, a rare thing, we're giving you the ability to recalibrate 2 stats. So maybe you want firearms and it's on electronics, you can kick it over to firearms and do one of your major or minors.
Nice.
Yeah.
Could you also just leave it on electronics and then do a major and a minor as well?
You sure could.
So you have complete freedom within those 2 that you want to change. All
and
right.
just for specifics, right, if 1272 is your current primary attribute max, that's the lowest a classified can roll.
All
like 1272 to, let's just say 1328, we're still working out the max, but it's going to be better.
Yep.
Period.
Right.
100%.
You're not losing anything, right, by swapping this out. And you have this chance for it to edge you up just a little bit, to give you those extra 300-400 stats of a particular, primary.
Right.
Nice.
And we understand what we're asking people to give up. I think that's another thing about taking these 6 pieces out of context. But people are going to have to replace their exotics and stuff like that, and that's a big ask.
We want it to be a hard choice for you when you're like, do I want to go into this all the way to the 6-piece, or do I want to stop at the 5-piece and still use my Barrett's chest?
Right.
Can you give some examples of the 5th and 6th piece bonuses? The 5th piece ones are kind of, I think, the first thing that we should do. What kind of things will we see on the 5-piece bonuses?
So the way the 5-piece bonus works is it's another, it's basically an increase of the 2 and 3 piece, right? So the 2 and 3 pieces are designed to help give the sets an identity. This is like an additive stat onto that. So final measure is going to kind of be like our example, because that's dropping in the first set of 3. And you get EDR and protection from elites with that. The 5-piece bonus is an additional increase on both of those stats.
Obviously, these things are all subject to change based on our testing on the PTS, I would imagine. What is the current plan for the final measure set as a 6-piece?
Yeah, so pretty excited about this. It's pretty neat, but the idea is, obviously final measure, you can defuse a grenade every 8 seconds. Now, if you go in to all 6, it's kind of adding to that support nature role of the set. So if you get a buff to yourself and to your teammates for what type of grenade you diffused. So EMP shock, it's going to give you a skill power increase, 15% for 8 seconds. Incendiary, is going to give you a weapon damage increase. And then flashbang and tear gas is going to give you an armor increase. So you can kind of get in there, jump on the grenade, buff your team up, and just push through the front line.
What are those playtests with the final measure 6-piece been like? Has it changed the way that people are playing Last Stand and that sort of thing?
The buffs have an impact. They have a huge impact. Yeah. So, the grenades are coming out, and as long as people are aware of the buff they're getting, right? We're asking people to be a little bit more skilled and identify, okay, that was an incendiary grenade, so it's weapon damage. Okay, everybody, focus on weapon fire and so on and so forth. So it's been really good for turning the tides from those grenade spammers.
And kind of an additional thing is as the grenade spammer, you see that you just procced a buff on your enemy by doing this, right?
Yeah.
So it makes you think a little bit more about tossing your grenade in. Before maybe they defuse one of them and you toss another one. Now they're actually going to be, have that little bit of edge on you.
Would you say that's tactical?
And so the other set we talked about, final measure, the changes are mostly happening in the 6-piece, correct?
It's bug fixes, like the one that you pointed out,
yeah.
And then changes in the 6-piece. I think the EDR, the increase in EDR is going to be pretty big, because we really want to encourage people who have this set to feel confident to get in there and
jump on
that grenade,
yeah.
And kind of be up in the front lines.
Yeah.
So with the increase on the EDR, what we're testing for PTS1, you'll be at a base 40% EDR by equipping the 6-piece.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a pretty powerful stat. We're looking at each of these classified sets as we introduce them to the community as our chance to, address some bugs with the set, maybe make changes to the 4-piece if we feel that something was out of balance or not fitting the thematic we and the community wanted it to be. So we'll be, fine-tuning the sets as they get reintroduced.
What would be the first sets that would be up for a rejig?
In Global Events 1, it's Deadeye, Final Measure, and Lone Star.
The PTS is a way for us to test things. When we do try out things like Deadeye and Lone Star, those changes, the changes are subject to change in of themselves. But what are you guys wanting to try out with Deadeye and Lone Star on the PTS?
Excuse me. So, for Deadeye in particular, obviously it's been a big topic in the community.
What?
I know. But we don't want to change the identity of the set completely. And, there's multiple things that are causing the current Deadeye meta. So we're tackling it from a few areas. One is we are going to be testing a change on the 4-piece for the PTS.
Okay.
And that's going to be that you can still get your 100% crit chance from cover, but you are set to the current max of 60% when you're doing the same behavior out of cover. So it's still an awesome increase, but it's not a 100% chance. If you want the full DPS potential, you're planning yourself in cover and playing a little more tactically.
All right.
We recognize the SVD, it's cool because it's a high RPM, rifle. So we want to let players continue to do that.
But, there are changes coming on the SVD too. So, the stability and accuracy are obviously kind of a little bit out of line with a lot of the other high RPM marksmen. So there will be changes on those stats to bring them a little closer to like the M1A. There are multiple Deadeye 4-piece changes, that are bigger in scope, right? But along with not wanting to completely change it for people who like the behavior, we're starting here and we'll be listening throughout the PTS.
Where would you like to take Lone Star from here? What when we do get to change it, what are the tests that you're hoping to do?
So for Lone Star, we don't have any big balance changes coming in for Lone Star, but what we want to do is kind of the 6-piece is going to really let you play that Jesse Ventura, Predator, just holding down the fire button moment, and kind of let you go a little berserk is kind of how we're looking at it.
Let the player have that and give them a damage buff, right?
Yeah. So the way it kind of works is you get this, when you do the reload behavior, so you're playing just like you are right now, you swap your weapon, you pull the next one out, it's refilled, you have this chance for a buff to proc on you, and when you fire that last bullet in the clip, you'll consume that buff and it will instantly refill and you'll have a higher RPM and it'll just kind of feel like you keep laying in. And you'll have a chance for this to proc with like an internal cooldown.
How do classified gear pieces interact with current gear pieces? You don't need to only have a set of classified and a set of regular, right?
No, so you can, as you're farming for these, right, like you already have your Deadeye set and you get the chest piece, the classified chest piece drops. You can slot it in and you'll still have your 4-piece Deadeye. And you can mix and match those to get the 2, 3, 4. But then you have to have all classifieds to unlock the 5 and 6. So it's, you're not kind of like losing your build identity as you work towards the 5 and 6, but you're just slightly gaining a little bit of power with each piece.
Oh, okay. All right, I understand. All right, so you can only get 6-piece if you have 6 classifieds.
Yes.
5 and 6.
Yep.
Must be classified.
Yeah, and the UI kind of like calls it out. You only see the 5 and 6-piece bonuses when you kind of look at a piece of the classified gear.
All right. Are they going to be a different color? I see people have brought that up in chat a few times.
No, they're not. They'll be green just because they're gear sets, right? We don't want to create any confusion.
So we're going to be testing more than just those 3 on this PTS.
Okay, cool.
At certain points in the PTS, there will be caches that you can open that just give you full sets.
So when the global events happen, and we're trying to get those global events tokens, I know that there are different tiers of caches, correct? And people can get those down in the terminal.
Correct.
Okay, so what are those different tiers of caches, and why would I want certain ones of those?
Well, what we're going to test out is if each tier of chest has a higher chance of these classified pieces. So the global events are going to allow players to focus on specific gear sets. So in the caches for Global Event 1, it's going to be Deadeye, Lone Star, and Final Measure.
Okay.
And the higher tier of cache is a greater likelihood that you'll get a classified piece. If it's not, it'll be one of those sets.
Because you'll be able to get those pretty fast, and it'll be like that chance of getting exotic in the open world versus, targeting it.
Yes. Are there any sets that you're comfortable with talking about, maybe some of the intentions that we might see in the future?
We're going to be testing out the first 6, so it's the stuff that will come with the first 2 global events. So the second set is going to be Sentry, Striker, and Reclaimer.
What are some of the things that you would like to do to Sentry on that 6-piece? Or on the 4-piece? I don't know if that's looking to be changed as well.
So for Sentry, basically, we're doing a bunch of little things, but the coolest one is the 6-piece, and it's going to allow you to put 6 marks on a target, and after the 3rd mark, each additional mark has a chance to spread to nearby targets. So you can be that person in the back, plinking things with your pistol, and not focusing on super high damage, right? Mm-hmm. But basically getting up to 6 marks on a really powerful NPC or player, but then also kind of procking that out to nearby agents. So by
That's really cool.
Keep laying in headshots, you're really helping out your team.
You might argue like, oh, but Keith, there's no way that I could get 6 marks on a person. They'll die.
Yeah.
Well, we're taking PvE into account too, right? All the cool legendary stuff and other things. You're going to be able to really utilize this new 6-piece in PvE quite nicely.
Do you guys?
Yeah, and the 3 additional marks, those specifically will only be on NPCs because we are keeping the PvP balance in mind, and we don't want to completely shift the meta to this. Yeah. But we want it to be a really fun tool for you, spreading marks and getting that extra DPS in legendary missions.
Striker was the other one you mentioned, I think?
I feel like if I talked about Striker off the top of my head right now, I would misspeak.
Yeah.
All right.
Because we're in the midst of kind of implementing that one currently to get it up on the PTS.
Well, we'll hold that one until the PTS.
We'll keep that one a surprise.
It was OP.
Yeah, so Reclaimer, the core of the set is we want you to kind of have this chance to proc this buff so that when your support station goes down, the cooldown is instantly refilled and you can drop another one. So by going all in on the 6-piece, you're kind of reinforcing your role on your team and kind of having a chance to, just almost feel like you have 2 skills. You're just, dropping that second one immediately.
The Reclaimer is so obviously reliant on the support station. Yep. So this gives players an opportunity, if they go all in, to be like, oh, cool, you killed my support station. Guess what, sucker? Boom.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that is it for the State of the Game recap. Easier to understand, easier to follow version. I hope this helped you guys out. There were quite a few things that were all over the place. I'm sure you could look into that lower left corner and see what time they said one thing and then they started talking about other things. Some of that was kind of all over the place. But what are you going to do? That is the format that they make their live streams in. So what questions do you have for the developers and what suggestions do you have? Personally, I think to really get into it and give my opinions about what they said in State of the Game, I'm probably going to have to do a bit of a real talk video or a kind of opinionated recap. I didn't want to put my opinions on this one just because this was already as long as it was. So yeah, I guess I better get started on part 2 so we can talk about what is coming in 1.7. All right, so until that video, I'm Khan, Mr. So Real. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.